100 years ago, Albert Einstein predicted the nature of black holes and gravity and time. I would need, I think, at least a few more science classes to understand completely. I'll bet you would too. But basically, he said that in our universe, space and time are relative. Time is not fixed. It moves around and is affected by other forces. Time can slow down and time can speed up and more. As New York Times science reporter Dennis Overby wrote, after Einstein set out the theory of general relativity in November of 1915, we realized space-time could curve, fold, wrap itself up around a dead star and disappear into a black hole. It could jiggle like Santa Claus's belly, radiating waves of gravitational compression, or whirl like dough in a mixmaster. It could even rip or tear. It could stretch and grow, or it could collapse into a speck of infinite density at the end or beginning of time. For a long time, Einstein's theory was widely accepted but unverified, until last month, when scientists for the very first time detected the violent merger of two black holes. The explosion of energy shot out from that merger, distorted space-time, and created ripples, waves of gravity that were detected all the way on Earth. You can go online and listen to the little blip that the scientists heard when it happened. It is so cool. Einstein's theory seems to have been verified by what they found. The implications are enormous. From this, we could learn more about the Big Bang and how we all got here. Stephen Hawking told the BBC, gravitational waves provide a completely new way of looking at the universe. The ability to detect them has the potential to revolutionize astronomy. This discovery, he said, is the first detection of a black hole binary system and the first observation of black holes merging. We may even see relics of the very early universe during the Big Bang at some of the most extreme energies possible. This is the stuff of fantasy, the stuff of science fiction. One who is a fan of Doctor Who, like myself, might think of the Doctor here talking of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. It's as close as I come to a technical explanation. Even for lay people like myself, it is a thrilling time to be alive. We're finding that the universe in which we float like a speck on the surface of the ocean is full of solar systems like ours. It seems more and more likely that somewhere, someplace, there may well be something we would recognize as life, though we'll probably never see it. The universe is more awesome and vast than we had imagined. Amazing. Though not everyone agrees. For some religious people, all this expansion of scientific knowledge feels like a personal threat. And in fact, it is threatening to a worldview based on a literal reading of ancient texts. And so there are places springing up like the Creation Museum in Cincinnati, where a person can pay way too much money and see the Dragon Legends exhibit, in which curators have tried desperately to link Eastern and ancient Hebrew stories about dragons to dinosaurs. The dragons are the dinosaurs, proving the earth is only several thousand years old, just like the Bible says, if you read it like a newspaper and not an ancient religious text. That is one way of reconciling scientific discovery and religion. Take scientific findings, discard the troubling bits like carbon dating, mix what's left with a literal reading of a religious text, which the authors never intended, by the way, and voila, science and religion are reconciled. It doesn't work. And religious liberals like Unitarian Universalists have long said it doesn't work. And I would go further than that even. Not only does it not work, but the fight between science and religion itself is a red herring. It's not really a fight about science and religion at all. The so-called debate between science and religion is a proxy fight between authoritarianism and progressivism, between authoritarian and progressive views of the world. People have studied authoritarianism for a long time, but this election cycle has academics giving it a fresh look. It's true. According to a recent study on authoritarianism reported on the Vox website by political scientist Matthew McWilliams, authoritarians, he says, quote, value conformity and order, protect social norms, and are wary of outsiders. And when authoritarians feel threatened, they support aggressive leaders and policies. I just threw in that last sentence free of charge. It doesn't have a lot to do with our topic this morning, but it's true. The study employed 4 questions to determine whether a subject was authoritarian. One of the questions was, what do you value more in your children, obedience or the ability to question conclusions? Valuing obedience over questioning is, the scientists tell us, an indicator of authoritarianism. Authoritarian religion has been under threat for a long time, certainly since the Protestant Reformation and the Enlightenment. Never more, though, than in our age of instant information and great scientific strides. Those who reject the science of climate change, for example, may be doing so in part because of financial interest, but I think many more do so because they don't see scientists as authority figures. Authority for them instead lies in a literal reading of an ancient text, and any discovery which threatens that reading is false and possibly evil. Scientific discoveries are as much a threat to that worldview today as they were in the days of Galileo, whose sin of discovering the truth about the universe went unforgiven by an authoritarian church hierarchy for more than 350 years. But is that the choice? Either you're a religious authoritarian or you're not religious. Either you value science or you value religion. I don't think so. I think for people of liberal religious faith to say, I'm not religious, I prefer science, is like saying, I'm not a baseball fan, I prefer driving a car. It's a false choice. You can love both. Not only do science and religion not need to be in opposition to one another, but as Marcy said this morning, and I say again, science and religion can be wonderful partners. They are like yin and yang, 2 sometimes very different energies, both of which are required for balance. In fact, the religious impulse and the scientific impulse in their origins are similar. They're about wonder at what the world surrounds us with, curiosity about where it all came from, why we're here in the first place, and what we should do now that we know we're here. Where we go after that impulse may have more to do with our worldview than with science and religion. We liberal religionists lose so much when we let the fundamentalists dictate how we see things, when we let them define religion or science or politics. We are religious people, you and I. We were just singing together. We meet in small groups to learn and explore spirituality. Sheesh, you're even listening to a sermon right now. I'm sorry, this is religion. And that's important. If we insist on separating ourselves from other religious traditions completely, we lose important allies and we lose our seat at the table with other faiths. We isolate ourselves. We're not big enough to isolate ourselves. Unitarian Universalism is a religion, but it's a certain kind of non-authoritarian religion, the kind of religion that remains relevant as our knowledge of the universe expands. William Murray wrote a book called Reason and Reverence, Religious Humanism in the 21st Century. He describes the kind of religion that he believes the 21st century requires. And he lists several characteristics. One of them is, it's a religion that learns from science and adapts its teachings accordingly. Murray's point, that point, is a really important one. A religion relevant in the 21st century will be informed by science. Religion is often about intuition. What is the Spirit leading us to do? What do we sense is right? But in liberal religion like Unitarian Universalism, and any religion that will continue to speak in the 21st century, when scientific discoveries counter intuition, it is intuition that must adapt, not science. What's the purpose of a faith like that? Murray quotes Karen Armstrong from her book, The Spiral Staircase. She says, "In the course of my studies, I have discovered that the religious quest is not about discovering the truth or the meaning of life, but about living as intensely as possible here and now. The idea is not to latch onto some superhuman personality or get to heaven, but to discover how to be fully human," end quote. Science cannot counter that purpose. It can only inform it. And religion can inform science too. Science begins with reverence and awe of the universe. That impulse has set many scientists off on their pursuits, but sometimes we get off track. We get consumed with greed and lust for power, and we use what we learn in our scientific exploration to create better, smarter bombs, rather than finding a way to feed the hungry. At its best, the religious impulse keeps pulling us back to awe and reverence for the universe around us, to respect for the lives with whom we share this time and space. It might lead us to ask the important 21st century question, sure, we can do that, but should we? We can frack for natural gas, but when it destroys the earth and pollutes water systems for miles around, should we? We could put another mine on Apache land in Oak Flat, Arizona. We have the technology, but should we? Or are we smart enough to come up with better ways to get our resources? Even Einstein became discouraged at times with the results of his pursuits. He once said, "More and more I come to value charity and love of one's fellow human being above everything else. All our lauded technological progress, our very civilization, can be like the axe in the hand of the pathological criminal." Progress, said E.E. Cummings, is a comfortable disease. Religion, as a partner of science, not as its opponent, can be helpful in asking the moral questions that must always accompany our advances in knowledge and ability. I've heard it said that you can define the word sacrament as an outward symbol of an inward truth. If that's so, then in my office I have a sacrament of the kind of faith I'm talking about, of science and faith unified. David, can you throw that up? It's a painting by Father Robert Lentz, who's a world-famous Franciscan iconographer and Catholic priest. In his artwork, he depicts Jesus as a black man and in another painting as a Native American. He has done similar paintings to this one of Dr. King and Harvey Milk. He wants to use his paintings to remind people that it's not a good thing for the church to control things like the image of Jesus, or who is and who is not a saint, even. So he does paintings like this one of Albert Einstein, a holy man whom Lentz describes as a mystic. And I figure that's a justifiable use of the term mystic. Because as you may know, Einstein didn't come up with many of his theories from evidence first. Often he used thought experiments to discern the nature of the universe. Scattered people rejoice. He daydreamed. That's what he did. He was wowed by the universe, and so he explored it in his laboratory and in his mind. Truly a mystic. One grounded in human experience, to be sure, but all the best ones are. So let us not be people divided, as our black or white society often tempts us to be. Instead, I say, let us live unified lives and let science and religion have their creative tensions in us. Both remind us that this universe we occupy is really the only miracle we'll ever need. May it be so. Amen.